To kick things off, we're going to launch right into the Fireside chats under the title called "Playing the Content Game in the Great Mobile Consolidation." And I have the pleasure of hosting that Fireside chat and having with us Jam City's co-founder and president, Josh Yguado. Josh, how are you?
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you.
You all do such an amazing job with this Pocket Gamer Conference. I really appreciate it. We're so excited to be part of it this year.
I don't know. I don't do amazing. The rest of the team do. I just come in and try not to mess it up too much. How's your day going? It's early in the morning there, of course. I guess it's sunny in LA, right? Stupid question, but is it?
Bright and early. We have the sun rising in the background. So I was excited to get up this morning and start with my cup of coffee and a chat with Chris James.
I mean, what a better way to start the day for anybody in the world. I'm available. I do mornings. Also children's parties and bar mitzvahs if needed. Anyway, let's crack on. So as you're the first on talk on the first person on the track, I thought we'd do a little bit of setting the scene and then go into the specifics of Jam City. Obviously, we want to know about Jam City, loads of exciting things going on. But just to kick off, I've got a couple of general questions to just gauge, how the old M&A and investment space is going. According to various reports, we had over 600 billion. That seems crazy. That can't be right. Of investments. Can't be billion. A massive number of investments, M&A and other deals already completed by the end of Q2, and that number's still growing rapidly week by week. Last year was a record. This year is going to be, even bigger. It's already even bigger. So it's fair to say the games industry is kind of riding some pretty unprecedented crests of waves at the moment, and we're through pretty uncharted waters. But are we at peak gaming? Or is this the beginning of a whole new golden age for games industry? What do you think?
Oh my God, we are nowhere near peak gaming, Chris.
Good answer.
I mean, you can think about it in two ways. Number one, yes, there's a lot of investment right now, but people are spending so much time in games. They're spending more time playing games, especially mobile games in particular, which is driving a lot of this growth, than they are, watching TV, certainly watching films, spending time in radio. There's no surprise to me that we're seeing a lot of consolidation in the space. This industry is still relatively fragmented. Yep. There are no, if you look at, again, like television or film, where there are 3 or 4 or 5 really big leaders in each country and many times global leaders, you're just not seeing that in mobile gaming yet. And so, again, we have to separate it a little bit because console gaming's a little bit different. It's been around for a long time. That space actually is quite consolidated. Mobile gaming, it is the Wild West. It is 3x the size of console gaming. We're just at the beginning. So that's from a business standpoint. I have to say from a product standpoint too, the devices are getting so much better that we can make so much better games now than we could 5 years ago. 5 years ago felt primitive, but I think even now we're just at the beginning. I feel like games are good, but they're not amazing. I don't know yet if we're making the franchises that people are going to be talking about in 50 years. I want to be doing that. That's what we're all striving for right now. I am really excited for where the product goes. And as soon as the product gets great, the dollars keep following. So more consolidation, better product, that's going to drive gaming.
God, I need you to start all my tracks. Like, this is the best. This is it. Come on, I'm ready to go and launch a games company straight away. So, what? Like, obviously, you're optimistic, you're bullish, and rightly so. Are there any particular kind of interesting trends or opportunities you're seeing? Anything new that's happening? You're saying we're still in the Wild West a little bit. We've had people talking about, there's been a lot of hyper casual acquisitions recently. There've been games companies adding their own advertising tech. That seems to be an interesting trend that's kind of happened. Is there anything you're noticing in particular that's interesting?
It's going to be interesting to see. I think oftentimes at sort of like the earlier stages of these industry expansions, you don't know necessarily exactly where it's going to go or who the leaders are going to be. It reminds me of, for instance, the dot-com boom in the 90s, where there was a ton of money going into the space. People asked also, by the way, if it was sort of like peak digital and then it was all going to go away and it was some trend. It turns out some of the players that were funded then ended up becoming industry leaders. Many of them did not. You didn't know necessarily, was it e-commerce? Was it gaming? Like, what was going to become the center of the dot-com boom? And I feel the same way in gaming right now. I think so many interesting things are happening. I think, AR people were talking about it a lot. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I feel like they're talking about it less now, but finding ways where we can create experiences that are really centered around this device that we all have in our hands every day. Like, we're not trying to replicate the console industry here, or at least we're not at Jam City. We're trying to create products that fit into people's lives that they find delightful and wonderful. That might mean shorter sessions. That might mean using, I mentioned AR, using sort of the information collected on your phone, on your Apple Watch, on your other devices. I just feel like, again, we're at the very, very beginning. I want to see where AR goes. I want to see where immersive goes. I feel like social, we talk about it a lot, but we're really just at the beginning. Like, seeing myself on a leaderboard, fine. Like, working with friends in a battle, that's all wonderful. I love it, but I feel like it could be 10 times deeper. Everyone talks about the metaverse. I think certainly,
You brought the metaverse in. I like it. That's good. What about NFTs? We haven't mentioned NFTs. What do you think about NFTs? That's new.
I mean, you're joking. You think I'm throwing out buzzwords, but this is really where things are going, and NFT is included in that. This is the future of monetization in games. I could talk about that for 3 hours. I'm really excited to see how that expands.
The whole track about that, so I'm not going to distract us away from it, but NFT is a huge thing. I'm going to go to Jam City now. I've got a couple of general questions, but I'll come back to them. You've kind of answered most things. I know you're keen to talk about segue into what you guys are doing, and it's very exciting. So, I mean, by all accounts, I mean, Jam City's had an incredible history and an incredible few years, and you've been there right from the off, right? You're just one of the co-founders.
Founder,
yeah, exactly. So it's been incredible. Is it a decade now? Is that right? Longer? We've been around for 15 years, so like, you're a baby compared to us probably, but how long has Jam City been around?
No, it's crazy to say. It's been 12 years. I think when we started it, we weren't sure if this was going to be a 2 or 3 year gig, and we are having such a blast that 11 years later, I can still say we're still just at the beginning of this. So it's really exciting.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far? I mean, we don't need to go through it like acquisition by acquisition, but I'm quite interested, particularly in your kind of approach to growth and M&A, because you do have this great habit of bringing in interesting new studios into the structure. I'd be interested to hear a bit more about the approach there and how that's going to work so far.
Yeah, no, it's I think our approach is a little unique. I think it fits for us. Our growth has been about 50% organic, and by organic I mean sort of games, and we're developing in-house, finding great people and empowering them, and them creating a wonderful new title. And about 50% acquisition. So that's usually finding a great title or a great studio, acquiring it and bringing it into the company. Our structure generally is pretty decentralized. We have a very strong core, we call Jam City Live, sort of core central services. That's user acquisition, that's data, that's machine learning. That powers a lot of these games, but all of the studios own their own games. They're proud of the games. They created them. They run all the live services. So it's almost having like a family of studios that are all part of Jam City. So that part of it's great. I'll mention also, we started out with much more casual games. So, games like Cookie Jam generated 850 million in bookings. We created it in 2015. Panda Pop's in a similar boat. And we love those titles. These are forever franchises that are going to be around forever. But as we, for instance, acquired a big, great studio in San Francisco called TinyCo, we got into narrative and narrative RPGs. So there we created Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, which has been, a very successful game. It was #1 in more than 40 countries when we launched it in 2018. And now with the acquisition of Ludia, we're getting into AR and we're getting into puzzle-based RPGs. So the idea for us is we're not so cocky to think that we can understand and excel in every single genre. We're finding people and organizations that are amazing, the best at what they do, bringing them into the family, supporting them from a technical and marketing perspective, but letting them run and be the geniuses that they are.
So you kind of have that, you're saying it's what my personal trainer says the same. You wouldn't believe I've got a personal trainer by looking at this, but it's all about a strong core, right?
I believe it, Chris. I believe it.
It's all about the strong core, right? So what you're saying is that the genius of Jam City, there's many things I'm sure, but it's having that really, really strong core sort of central system and services that then allows you to just kind of bring in quite different studios and allow them to do their thing, right? So it kind of, and how was that always the way? Was that like the way from sort of day one, or was that something that kind of evolved Was that always the thought? I mean, I guess it was a different time 12 years ago, right? We all, the world was different then, back then it was very early days of App Store and everything, but.
Yeah, well, no, we didn't start as an international conglomerate. We started as, 3 or 4 friends in a coffee shop thinking about the fact that mobile games were tiny at that point, but we thought they could be huge. We saw that mobile gaming was very big in Asia, but it really hadn't gotten a foothold here. Again, remember, this is 11 years ago. This is right basically when the App Store launched. Yep. And so we just felt like there was a wide open opportunity here. We saw that there were a few little developers here and there, but all of the product at that point, at least, we felt was not as good as it could be. And so we started by, and again, we were not game experts necessarily at that point, by saying we're going to make very simple games. We were designing them in-house. Again, like not even game makers. We personally were designing them. We really understood social because my co-founders were the creators of MySpace. They understand social networks.
No, I was going to say that. When you were saying just a few friends in a coffee shop, these weren't like just kids come out of school go, you know what, should we get a job at McMackey D's, or should we put together a game studio? Yeah, we're pretty impressive founding group there, but yeah, but still, it's a challenge. Whatever your history is, as you say, coming into this is difficult, and it's very impressive achievement, definitely. So I want to move on. You talked about a bit more about Ludia before, and I want to come into that. So that's your kind of latest activity, really. Obviously, I want to tell me a little bit how it all came about, because how long have you been looking at Ludia? How many of you have been working with them for a while? Do you kind of had your kind of eyes on them and doing cross promotion or anything? What was that? Where did that come from? Because it's a pretty big deal. Even in the world of big deals now, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, first, just on the deal, it's we raised. This is 3 weeks ago. It's fresh in my mind. We raised $350 million in funding, and we used about half of that, $165 million, in the acquisition of Ludia. And then about Ludia, we've known them for such a long time. They basically started when we started 11 years ago. They're one of these studios where they started out making console games and games on Facebook. They got amazing traction with a lot of branded titles like Family Feud, and then most recently, they have the Jurassic World titles. 2 of them which have been wildly successful. Jurassic World Alive, it's actually the #2 AR game in the world right now.
I know you mentioned you mentioned that when we were chatting about this before. I didn't know that. Now, obviously, I can't even remember what the #1 is. I can't imagine. But assuming, I appreciate #1 is probably quite a long way away from everyone else. But that's impressive, because there's a lot of people were having a run, and I've had a run at there were Walking Dead games, or a lot of other kind of branded games run at that. I didn't realize that The Lost World was so successful. I mean, I knew it's a cool game, but that's really interesting to hear. And that's new for you, right? The AR stuff is a whole new space for JamC.
Yeah, it's like what I said, finding wonderful people who have a really strong core capability in an area we don't. And we actually were all sitting down to dinner with the Ludia team. They came down from Montreal to Los Angeles. We had such a wonderful time, and we were talking about how they came up, how they we're taking on these challenges that other people weren't willing to, creating that infrastructure to have AR-based games. It is not easy. It requires incredible technical competence. This is such a talented team. And then they're also known, like Jam City, for working with big Hollywood IPs. They want to create big world. Jam City, we're about 50-50 third-party IP and original IP. They're 100%, or I shouldn't say 100%. They're predominantly third-party IP, IP they're licensing, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mentioned Jurassic World. We have these amazing DC and Star Wars games in the pipeline right now that I cannot wait to show to people. Oh. So anyway, the point is,
have we heard that? Is that news? I didn't know that.
No, we've disclosed that. We've disclosed.
I thought we were getting a scoop there. I was going,
breaking news.
He's accidentally let it slip. We've got DC and Star Wars. That DC Star Wars crossover, right? That'll be the Marvel. No.
Definitely not. No. We've shared that we're working on some wonderful games in those worlds. We haven't disclosed what they are, or what they look like, or anything like that. So
that's great. Yeah, I was going to say brands. I will come back to Ludia in a sec, but from a brand perspective, it's obviously you're out in you're out in LA. There's a lot of brands. You know, it's a big movie town. You know, was that always again a part of? Obviously, you have your own IPs that have been built as well, like you said, kind of Cookie Jam and Panda Pop and things like World War Do coming out now. Was that always? You said it was like 50-50. Was it? Were brands always been part of the plan and part of the picture? I mean, why is it? Why the brand focus?
You know, honestly, it came up a bit organically. My background is actually in traditional entertainment. I worked at Viacom. I worked at Univision. I spent, you know, the way Chris and I met, my co-founder, is we were both working at Fox. I worked on the acquisition of MySpace, which was Chris's company. It came a social network from the dark age. It's been a long time. I don't know if all of your lovely viewers were around then, but
everyone still uses MySpace. It's still there.
but Chris and his team, they just understood social inside and out. They're also amazing entrepreneurs. And so the whole point is we felt like we were coming into something that really had legs. And so that's how it all, began.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And the brand stuff, yeah, you that's your, that's partly your, you know, your own experience, and I guess from you know, sort of Chris and others were working with big brands. I mean, it's like you say, you're balanced. You've got not all brands, you've got your own IP, but you're also working with brands as well. It's an interesting, it's a smart approach, I think, because, you know.
Yeah. Sorry. I just remembered I lost track and I didn't finish that part of the question. Which is to say, we were both at Fox. You know, we've been part of entertainment companies. We know it inside and out. We know the power of these worlds. I also think the IP holders, you know, they know that they have a lot of viewers and fans who enjoy their IP, you know, through books or through TV or through film. The idea that they could actually have even more viewership, more hours per day of their fans enjoying their characters in mobile games. It seems more obvious now. I mean, if you think about, you know, a film, you know, that's 2 hours once a year, let's say, in your favorite IP. If you think about a television show, maybe that's an hour a week. A game, people are spending on average, for instance, you know, our players spend between 35 and 45 minutes in each one of our games every day. Like it's a big part of their life, just like, you know, they might spend time with their friends. Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it. That's a fair point. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way before. That's a very good point. I love particular brands of TV shows and films, and I, you know, I'll go and, you know, watch latest iterations in those universes. But yeah, from a games perspective, especially mobile, I will find myself playing the same things, you know, just checking in every day. Okay. So from a brand perspective, it's a no-brainer, right? This is an engagement.
It's amazing for the brands, and it's amazing for us, where we can establish a world and go out with it. People know what to expect. When we launched Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, for instance, narrative RPG, the movies are no longer out there. The movies are certainly out, but there are no new movies. They've got
the new, what's the thing now? They've got the new one, haven't they? Fantastic Beasts is still going on.
Exactly. But if you want to be at Hogwarts, if you want to live out the fantasy of being a student at Hogwarts and following all those wonderful characters that you've come to know and love, our game has become the way to continue to enjoy those worlds and those stories. And so we love that. So you're jumping into it. You have expectations. You know what to expect from that universe. And we can jump right into the fun of the game versus having to establish, here's where you are, here's why, let's start over. And again, we do that with a lot of our original IPs. We love to do that. But it's such a luxury to be able to have people come in day one or even see an ad and really have a sense of what to expect from that world. It's so much fun. We love doing it. We're going to continue to do it. In the future, we expect IPs to be third-party IPs, I should say, at least 50% of our game mix on an ongoing basis. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that makes sense. I think there was a time, certainly in the games industry and certainly in the console games industry, where a licensed IP was almost a death knell for the quality of the game. It was just like, oh, there's a new film coming out. Right, someone's got the IP about 6 months before the film's due to come out. Quickly try and wrap that IP around a generic game and do your best. And it took a while. I think some of the Arkham, the Batman sort of games from console kind of started to turn that around. But yeah, obviously nowadays it's not that way, and it's much more integrated. You see people, you know, sort of games not being part of the universe as a story necessarily, but certainly integrated well in some marketing campaigns. And Yeah, and as you say, if you've got that touch point, it makes a lot of sense for the brand holders as well.
Well, I think the IP holders get that, and I think for a long time they were either holding off from games or because of the exact reasons you said.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a brand slap, and so I think the reason that Jam City, and I don't mean to tout our own horn, but we've really
That's what you're here for. Toot away, it's fine.
We've become, like, between Jam City and now adding Ludia to that, we've become, if not the partner of choice for Hollywood studios, one of the top partners of choice, because we create these immersive, narrative-rich games around these brands. We do not treat them as brand slaps. We spend, 2 years creating a really wonderful game, not to just like get that quick burst of players, but to create experiences that our players can enjoy for years and years and years. So in Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, in our Disney Emoji Blitz game, in our Family Guy game, you can go down the line. Each of these games have new content we're dropping every week. So new characters, new levels, new adventures. This is the opposite of a brand slap. We're trying to create an iconic, evergreen experience that people can enjoy for years and years and years. And literally, we have players, and I'll start with Cookie Jam, that joined in 2014, 2015, that are still a large part of our user base. Yeah. And we're seeing the exact same thing in our licensed IP games too, like Harry Potter and Disney.
I've got a few more questions. I might try and bring a few from the audience here. I'm not going to throw anything awful here, but there's a guy. There's one from Phil Jones. Who I always pick out the ones that give their name first, because that's. He says you were talking about brands. He goes, naturally, I won't ask you to name them, but have you ever produced a great game only for the IP to be poorly received by audiences? I don't know if he means whether you produced a game around an IP and the IP itself has struggled, or whether you produced a game where maybe the existing audience isn't quite as on board. Has that ever happened, or have you seen that happen? Take it outside of Jam City, maybe.
Yeah, no. I'll it's a good question. I'll tackle both of them. First, with original IPs, we've 100% had situations where we've come up with worlds and characters that we've fallen in love with ourselves, but haven't necessarily resonated in the market. This is the nature of the entertainment business. Every IP you create doesn't become a big hit. You think you're learning a lot, you take your lessons from each one, but I'd say, in the industry, it's probably 1 in 20 new game that works. I'm making up that term, but it's like a very low percentage. At Jam City, it's much higher, but you still definitely have games that you put your heart and soul into that don't end up being wildly successful. In terms of licensing IP, I have to say that it's a much more known quantity in that situation, where you understand the size of the fan base, what they're looking for. We have an amazing consumer insights group, by the way, which is always testing and making sure that we're fulfilling sort of the fan wants and needs. So with licensed IP, I'm trying to think. We had a Marvel game that didn't get. It was a delightful game, Marvel Avengers Academy, that we thought was going to be larger than it was. It ended up. It was sort of this fantasy of your all your Marvel, Iron Man and the Hulk and all these characters as teenagers in high school, and you're going to high school with them. And that fantasy didn't resonate like we thought it would, but we tried. So sometimes you try things that are a little out there.
There's a lot of Marvel. It's tough. There's a lot of Marvel games out there as well. There's a lot of Marvel films at the moment. There's about one every week coming out, which is good. I like Marvel films. So there's a question here, which something I wanted to come back to, because from a technology perspective, you're very excited about the prospects of AR with Ludia, and you clearly see that as a big future. What about? Do you have any interest in VR or combine? XR, I guess is. Do you see AR and VR completely different? And from a technology perspective, how do you feel about those two spaces? Where do you think we're all going to be having, replacing our phones or augmenting our phones with sort of some sort of AR experience going forward, or will we have glasses?
Gosh,
that's a lot of questions. I was riffing. Sorry, I got a bit carried away.
It's like 10 questions in one.
Yeah, pick one of those questions and ignore the rest. Whatever's easiest.
I remember when we started in mobile gaming, people were like, "Oh my God, is mobile gaming going to kill console and PC gaming?" I love console and PC games. The answer is absolutely not. There's a wonderful opportunity for people to enjoy console and PC games, and they're going to continue to enjoy them, even if mobile games are wildly successful, because they're fulfilling different needs, different parts of people's lives. I love VR. We're not making VR games. I think it's amazing. It's a completely different experience where you're right now, you have to, usually you're in your living room, you're plugged in. It's much longer sessions. It's by definition an immersive experience. That's great. It's not instead of mobile.
Not instead of
games.
mobile. No, it's a very different.
For us, and I mentioned this before, we're trying to make the most of this mobile device that you're carrying in your hands and your wearable devices that you're taking with you day to day. So I want shorter sessions. I want quick, snappy gameplay. In a lot of cases, I'm not trying to create an immersive world. I'm trying to have you have a more personal, intimate, small experience. And you may call it a casual game, which I think is dismissive, because it can be very deep and rich, but it's smaller. It's often more tactile. We're touching the screen. I think it's just a completely different experience. I don't think it's one or the other. We love them all. And AR is the same thing. That's why we love AR. It's taking advantage of this device that's core to our lives. You can go around with it. You can do it safely. You can have a lot of fun with it, and the sessions work perfectly with the sessions they're having in our other mobile games.
And when Apple bring out their AR glasses, you'll be ideally positioned. No comment. So we're all waiting to see what they do. They keep hinting at it, and nothing much has happened yet. On that point, one of my questions I didn't ask is it's kind of related to that. You said you're not making VR games. I've seen a trend for mobile publishers to start looking outside of mobile recently. I think Zynga and we're looking at a console game for their new Star Wars thing, and Scopely looking at bringing their Star Trek thing to PC. And is that something that that you're even considering at Jam City, or are you very much mobile?
No, so specifically mobile to PC and to some consoles. We're already doing it. I mean, we don't really talk about it, but a lot of our games you can already play on console, either via Facebook or on separate sites or experiences. Look, there's no reason why, if you're having a wonderful time on your game, on your mobile game, that you can't also enjoy it on a PC. Like, we think, let's make it easier for people to get into and enjoy our wonderful games. I will say that a lot of the games we make, though, if you're running around chasing dinosaurs, trying to collect them, it's not going to work very well on a PC. If you're, playing Cookie Jam and having fun with these puzzle pieces, it works better on a screen. So a lot of I'd say much more than 90% of our usage tends to come from mobile. Certain games, harder core or deeper sort of 4X type of games, I think work better on PC. And so we're going to continue to make a lot of our games available on PC. And we think that's an important thing to do. It's another revenue stream. It's making a better experience for your player. We love it, but it's not the main focus of our business or the types of games we're making.
Fair enough. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes. We started late, we finished late, don't we? But I'm going to try and squeeze in 3 questions because, I like a lot of questions. So one's really super quick, and which is from the audience. I'm going to get into 2 final ones of mine. Super quick one from the audience is from Alyosha Sari, which I hope I pronounced correctly. What is your favorite original IP? I don't know, that's personal or game production. I don't mind.
On mobile, or
that we just says generally. I guess so. Original IP, yeah, mobile. Could be yours. I'd go with yours. I would. Your interview.
You would think I would want to push one of my own games, but I have to say, you once you pick one of your favorite children, everyone else hates you. So I love all the original IPs we've created equally. In terms of third party, I'm gonna make it a little bit more specific, just to sort of there's so many IPs I love. It would be hard to say my favorite original IP in the world. My favorite mobile IP that surprised me to death, and I never expected it. Oh God, there's several of them. This is a tough one. So in terms of casual, tangible, wonderful games, Monument Valley still touches my heart. The beauty of these little characters, the minimalist world. I think there should be 20 games done in the same style with the same little characters that convey the same power. I just think it's so wonderful. I think there are also with newer up and coming developers, one that just got acquired. There's wonderful mystery and deeper narrative games that are coming out. There's several that some of our, I don't want to get too deep promoting.
No, that's okay. I know.
But there's really cool. I feel like diving into what mystery can be, especially on a mobile game, is just really exciting. And I think some great developers are doing that right now.
Okay, so final 2-part question is which I think are connected. what is it you look for when acquiring a studio? Because you've obviously, like, is there a Jam City type of people, and sort of adjunct to that and kind of related, I guess, is where next? What's the big, you know, you were kind of on the verge of kind of floating via SPAC, and then you've, you know, the market changed a bit, and you just pulled some money out of that behind the sofa, so it didn't need to. So what's next, and what sort of companies? I presume you're going to acquire more companies. You saw them. What sort of companies are you looking for, and where next? Easy questions.
Chris, you're so good at putting 10 questions into one question.
It's two. It's just two.
I don't even remember where to begin. But I'll say first, in terms of the studios we're looking at, I'd say it starts with the people. So if you look across Jam City, I'd say that the characteristic that resonates most is this sense of curiosity. I think people that work here, who are part of the Jam City family, really feel like this is not a place about like yelling and driving and like making people feel bad about, you know, things that are working or not working. This is a place where we're all so curious. If you're not trying to learn something new every day, if you're not trying to get great at the particular type of game you're at, it's probably not the right place. If you're a scholar of your genre of games and you're good at them and you know what you're talking about and you're excited to come in every day, and you know, our life's too short, we could work on anything, to come in and work on these games that are meaningful to you, that's the type of person we want. That's the type of team we want. If you look at all the acquisitions we've done, maybe not all, not 95% of them, the original founding team's still here because they know that. And they come here, not because they want to sell out of their game and get the heck out. They come here because they feel like they're going to thrive here. They're going to be able to create a much more successful game than they wouldn't have otherwise. And that's why we've 2 or 3x all the titles that we've acquired. It's nice if the genre is adjacent. It doesn't need to be. We're trying to learn and bring other folks in, other teams in that are making us bigger and better and teach us things that we don't already know. And those people hopefully want to learn from what we have here as well. And together, we hope we can make something much bigger and much more successful than we already have. I mentioned before, we raised 350 million. We have an opportunity to do a lot more acquisitions than we've already done. We're always looking for great, talented teams, wonderful people, titles that are ready to launch, or games that are in process, or games that have been around for a while and maybe need that central services, user acquisition capability. And it would be a good fit from a cross-promotional perspective with what we already have. So that's the long answer.
Well, that was fantastic. That was absolutely brilliant. And there's something that you picked up there, which has given me an idea to give you for your next brand. Be curious, not judgmental. You know who says that?
Who?
Ted Lasso. Get him in a game. He's the hottest. Apple love him. He's the hottest guy at the moment. Absolutely love that TV show. He's great. But thank you so much for the for sharing so much about what Jam City are doing. It's really fascinating to watch, and we'll keep watching keenly and keep hoping for more and more success, more exciting things to come on. Keep an eye on the AR output, definitely, from you guys and Ludia. Thank you for your time this morning, Joshua. I'll let you go off and enjoy the LA sunshine, whatever you're doing this morning.
Chris,
cool.
You're so much fun. Thank you for having me. I really loved this. Happy to have conversations like this anytime.
Cool. Thanks. Well, we'll have you back again. Don't worry. Cheers, Joshua. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
What a brilliant start. One absolutely brilliant start to this panel.